10, 11, 12. Woo! Yo, peeps. Welcome back to the Chronic Brew. Oh man, today we're going to be in the gym today with this one. Today's guest is someone I personally view as a navigator for the path that many of us with CKD are walking on. His name is Marc Coronel, okay? He's a former boxer, a healthcare consultant, and a TEDx speaker. But more importantly to this community, he is a rare CKD warrior. While Marc and I share this diagnosis, he has traveled a few miles further down the road than I have, navigating the grueling routine of dialysis and the life-changing milestone of a kidney transplant. Yo, he's here with us today to move us past the motivational quotes and get us into the brass-knuckle reality of this disease. We're going to be talking about the financial hits when you have to leave a career, being strong enough to be vulnerable with close friends and family, and how to build an advocacy platform that is sustainable for the long haul. Peeps, get ready to put on the sparring gloves with me today because we're training with the champ. Welcome back to the Chronic Brew.
I didn't have the strength that I have now. That's when you really need people.
People who could understand.
It really did make a difference.
So finding that community, finding that tribe.
Or in that realm of chronic illness and stuff.
I barely go through it because I'd be so focused.
Never thought in a million years that would have to happen to me.
All those emotions are valid. Yeah. Every last one of them.
I was at a low point.
Just kind of removing the stigma.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Chronic Brew. Marc, you've been through the rounds I'm still training for. I'm honored to have you on the show to share just the raw, unfiltered truth, bro. Welcome to the Chronic Brew.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, man, Marc, I have a ton of respect for the miles you put in, and I actually have to say this. When I left another social media platform to join Instagram, I was looking for a community, bro. And I'll be honest, your account was one of the first ones I followed. And it's been a long time of motivation and inspiration, bro. So I thank you so much for your journey and everything that you've been putting out there.
Of course. Thank you so much. And it's so interesting you say that because I don't have a huge following. I have the right following, right? A lot of the people that do follow me are all kidney patients. And kidney patients, there's not a really, really huge following unless you're a superstar. But I think as long as the message gets out there and it inspires and motivates those who are going through it, my job's done on social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we're going to dive deep today, okay? But before we get right into the grit of things, we're going to skip the first sip that I usually do on my show. It's that traditional break the ice a little bit, but we're going to jump right into the espresso shot. You're a boxer, I think you can get quick with the rounds and speed bags and stuff. So I'm going to fire a few quick ones at you. Don't overthink. Just give me the raw first stop response that comes to your mind.
Sure, let's do it.
Here we go. Heavy bag or speed bag? Which one better describes a day on dialysis?
Heavy bag or speed bag? Heavy bag for sure.
What's one medical rule you've broken because your nutrition knew better than the chart?
That's a good question. What's one medical rule like drinking too much water?
In one word, what is the biggest barrier between a patient and a sustainable career?
Vulnerability.
That's a whole episode right there. What's the one superpower CKD gave you that makes you a better husband today?
Being able to explain myself a little bit better.
And last one, if you could delete one piece of paperwork from the transplant process forever, what would it be?
That's a good question. I would say, in all reality of my transplant journey, it was, we're all going to go through a lot of different lanes when we get into the transplant center. I would say nothing. It really helped me understand self, understand questions to ask that helped me in the long haul, right? They have a very standardized way of running a transplant department on who's eligible and who's not. I realized that in the transplant center, they want to make sure that donor is healthy so that they don't have two patients instead of one. I think it's an amazing way of how they do that.
Yeah, we ain't gonna take out nothing.
Don't take out nothing, but I definitely feel that if we were to go down to the root, it would be give it to me in basic English.
Yeah,
Yes, thank you. All that medical jargon stuff. But you know what makes it good though? Because we can go back and impress some of our friends. We can be like, yo, this is GFR, microbiomes and kidney
Yes,
genomes. We can flex a little
yes,
bit.
correct,
Oh
correct, correct.
man. The caffeine kicked in. I feel it. Mark, we
Amazing.
had some solid laughs on that one. It was fast, but I want to slow it down and get to the raw, unfiltered parts of this show. You and I both know CKD, the whole CKD grind, but you've seen chapters of this book that I'm still reading. Let's start with the crossroads. Can you share a specific personal instance where chronic illness forced you to make difficult decisions about your career and personal life?
That's a good question. There was a moment where I realized dialysis wasn't just something I had to fit into my life. It was my life schedule. Now I had to really, really try to balance work and treatment, showing up exhausted, inconsistent, not myself, and had to make a decision most people never had to make. Do I protect my career or do I protect my life? What hit me the hardest wasn't losing income. It was losing identity. I was always the reliable one, right? Chronic illness it really reinvents me before I was ready. And nobody prepared me for that.
Absolutely. Like, you're not prepared for whatsoever because it just rips the rug right up under you,
Right. And I think that's one of the hardest truths there.
You've been a boxer and an advocate. How does the relentless fighter of chronic illness compare to those experiences, particularly when support is lacking?
See, in a boxing ring, you get a bell, you get a break. In CKD, there's no bell. I've tried to live like every day was fight night and it burnt me out. And the truth is, you can't operate at peak intensity in a chronic condition. It will break you, right? As an athlete, I had a strict schedule. It's really interesting here because it translates into my kidney disease. I woke up in the morning, 6 a.m., do my 3-mile run. After that would then be in the gym. Then after that, it was weight training, and it was a consistent thing, right? In all honesty, man, that really got me ready for the dialysis and the discipline I needed to get off of it, right? Why? Because getting up at 6 a.m. every morning was a discipline that most of the time I didn't want to get out of bed. But it was life and death for me. Because my coach once always told me, he said, you see that opponent right across from you? He's trying to take food away from the table that you eat from. So I looked at dialysis, kidney failure the same way. That opponent wants to take my life away.
And now it's just a matter of battling just to continue living.
Right. How do I now stick and move when the opponent's in me? Not something I can see visually, right? When you have that internal battle with self, I think it hits different where you can't just stick and move. You have to strategize. And strategy doesn't require you to, this is how my day is going to go, because kidney failure can throw an overhand right hand that you weren't expecting, that you didn't train for. And then you have to adapt to that situation because that punch can knock you out.
It's easy to throw a jab at somebody standing in front of you. But for you to do self-inflicting, dodges and hitting yourself, that's a whole different battle that I feel like a lot of, and I'm going to air quote this one, normal folks or people without comorbidities, understand yet.
And here's one thing I want to point to that, right? You start to understand self more in your most vulnerable state on how to befriend depression, befriend anxiety, befriend bargaining, denial. And at what point do you become acceptant to your situation when you have no other choice?
You mentioned financial strain from chronic illness. What specific challenges have you faced with navigating the financial implications of leaving a job?
I had to learn it the hard way. Your story alone isn't enough. For a long time, I was sharing everything, but it wasn't building anything, right? The financial strain I feel that I had to endure, that people relied on me. And again, it goes back to the identity. This is all I knew. This is who I was. This is what I did. where, I was a consultant in the corporate wellness sector where people depended on me for their healthy lifestyle, right? And I had to transition from helping people who were healthy to now helping myself who was sick. I went from I say this quote a lot. I went from fighting people to fighting for my life, now helping those who don't have a voice. And it correlates so much with boxing because you go 1 round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, and you have to adapt based on the situation, on how the storm comes, right?
Yeah.
I'm praying for the sun, yet alone I have to learn how to dance in the storm.
The patient-oriented advocacy, you champion is critical. We need to focus more on the patients. I heard a lot of med pros say they learn a lot from patients who share their experiences just so that they can better fix what they're going on in the healthcare field. What changes do you hope to see in the current support systems?
Tangible things that I see changing in the healthcare system. I recently did an interview with a doctor who said, I've learned this language 10 years, and it's going to take me 10 years to unlearn it to speak basic English back to the individual who doesn't know how the healthcare system is ran. And that hit hard because it took me 15 years to understand, to be able to even sit at the table, right? I didn't know how to read labs prior. I did, but at a very, very minimal. Oh, doc, what is red blood cell count? What is hematocrit? What does EGFR mean in my labs? And until I got to the post-kidney transplant stage, I really got to see what that looked like for me, right? Because the questions aren't just, am I good? Because the doctor can say you're stable, but stable from your last report only means it's stable, that it's still at its low end, but it didn't go up or down, right? And I think the misunderstanding of patients hearing that terminology gives them a sense of relief, not knowing that stable means you didn't get better or worse. You still stayed at whatever. You're still at stage 4. And I think you as patients, you're like, I understand that. Wow. It's so interesting how he can articulate that. But because we are so vulnerable that any win we take is a good one, no matter what. As long as the doctor says you're good, that's already a win, not realizing that the underlying condition or the underlying conversation with that might be stable, just means you didn't go up or down. You're still at CKD4, right?
I'm just going to take a quick side quest with you on that note. So even with that, I know it's not heavy leaning towards the gaslighting of medical gaslighting, but when we hear stable, there's not a lot of clarification going on with that. But then we do have doctors that gaslight the heck out of our symptoms sometimes. We might be feeling a certain pain. Oh, it's just stress. It's just your mind. You're just bugging out a little bit. But then what do you say to the gaslighting of the doctors?
That's a really, really good question. And I'm going off of, based on my own experience in having to do that, because being post-kidney transplant is a different conversation, right? I think when you're diagnosed, gaslighting, doc, am I good? Yeah, you're good. Okay, cool. When you're on dialysis, well, how's my phosphorus levels? Am I good? You're, and then you're post-kidney transplant, and it's like, all right, Mark, here's where you're at. As long as we don't got no renal failure. I was like, okay, doc, let's go deeper on that conversation, right? Wow. Because you go through 3 different communities. The people who are diagnosed, the dialysis patients, and then the transplant patients. All have different conversations. I can't ask, and this is, again, I speak on the patient's perspective, not gaslighting for the doctors, because I'm a patient. Yeah. And I call myself a patient advocacy and we call ourselves patient advocates because we advocate for ourselves, right? And I think what patient advocacy means is sharing your story in hopes that you can inspire somebody else. Right. But it doesn't pay the bills, right? Patient advocacy, when you say that and you title yourself that, it doesn't pay the bills. It's something you do because you've lived through an experience and you want to help people navigate it navigate the hardship that you went through so that they don't have to feel that pressure of learning what's going on. So to go back to that gaslighting stuff, man, here's the truth, man. I think you have to just advocate for yourself as much as possible.
Yeah.
You know, because you hearing that from the doctor and then you hearing from your family, your friends, and everybody else, well, you don't look sick. It's a double-edged sword.
Yes.
It's a double-edged sword, right? So you want to advocate, you want to be a patient advocate for yourself. That's the best advice I can give you, because you cannot help another person if you can't help yourself, especially if you are in the middle of the storm, right? Someone asked me the other day, hey, Mark, I seen you were on dialysis. How do you feel about telling other people's story while you're fighting for your own life? And it was a real hard question for me to answer. Why? Because I needed to advocate for myself first. I needed to put the oxygen tank on me first before I can do it for somebody else. Right? Yeah. Now that I have a kidney transplant, I can now share other people's story. But for that very moment, we go through 3 selves: selfless, selfish, and self-full. And I needed to be selfish with my care because I needed to get out that chair.
And I've seen those chairs. People are just like not wanting to be there. They're grieving at the chair.
Right. So, you know, and that also leads to another form of mental, we call that PTSD, right? Post-traumatic stress syndrome, because you see a lot of things that you don't see normally, right? A soldier goes to war. A patient goes to war with self, fighting for his life, seeing other people fight for theirs. And sometimes it costs theirs, right? Some start to lose sight. Some get amputated. Some don't have that heart that was once strong because of the dialysis machine, right? So the conversations get very, very serious, right? You know, I advocate a lot, but in all reality, man, the brightest smile brings the hardest pain. So when you say you were motivated, it wasn't because I was speaking to what you understood. You're seeing a man smile through his hardest pain.
There's another itching question that I got, but I'm going to save that for a little later. It's
Please.
Something that I kind of observed. I mean, we might as well talk about it now. It's something I observed probably at the beginning of just creating, you know, this whole patient advocacy thing, right? And I've talked about it before on the podcast when we were talking about the community of whatever chronic illness you're experiencing, how we kind of like have our own, you know, diagnosis cells, and we're, you know, within the ring, we have our own camps and our own battles, right? Mm-hmm. But then what I noticed one time in the CKD community, and this is just a personal take, is like there's a lot of division, although we do share the CKD diagnosis. And what I consider sad in a sense is the fact that, let's say somebody is stage 2. All right. Now, some of us might go, stage 2, all right, light work. You know what I'm saying? But then, you know, you got the stage 5 person or the stage 4 person. For me, what ended up happening was I saw somebody on dialysis, bro. And I'm new to this. I'm seeing this PTSD is kicking me in the forehead. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do, what to say to this guy. All I can do is just say, hey, bro, I see you deep in the trenches. I was almost there at one point because I went to 11 GFR, but then they popped the stent and I went back to like stage 4 a little bit. And then I was just like, bro, hang in there. You got this. And what I got in response was like, oh, you're a CKD patient too? What stage are you? Oh, well, you're not that bad kind of deal. And I was like, wait a minute. We're wearing the same army fatigue. Like we're in this, you know? And what I kind of saw was there's a lot of people, not all, I'm not saying all, but there's a lot of people that have you know, if you're not on the chair, then you're not really in it. And it's like, I hear that sentiment for sure, but then you're talking about to the newbies who see the fight ahead, you know, like they're going to be in that chair one day. So right. What do you think we could do to kind of like bring more of a sense of unification? I don't know if you've seen that as well on your end.
You know, again, I go through the 3 stages, right? The diagnosis, the dialysis, and then the transplant stage, right? All of those are 3 different conversations, right? How do we unify that? It's a good question, because when I was on dialysis, I would have said probably the same thing. Not because of what you think, right? But because of there's still a lot for you to go through, right? And I hope this scares you to make sure that you change habits so you don't end up on here. Yeah. I don't think he meant that or this individual made that as an ill intent comment, or anybody does. It's just you speak your reality and your truth. That I think people will misconstrue because of how real the conversation is. It's not like you look healthy and you're stage 4 because a patient on dialysis can look at your legs and say, damn, that man's legs are swelling up. It's only a matter of time before he ends up on here. Hey man, look, I got $5. Other boy has $100, and it's like, look, you got there's still some time for you to get that $100 bill. I mean, I just use that as a point of reference, right? But if we were to go back into the dialysis stage, or let's just say even a war zone, boxing, it's like asking Mike Tyson, hey man, I'm in the amateurs, I'm ready to go. Son, you still have a lot to go. With everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face, right? And that's just the truth, right? I've done the patient advocacy side, the ambassador side, and the credible messaging side, right? At this point, I just have to stay in my lane because there's no traffic in it, right? I have to worry about my health issues in order to educate others on what I'm looking at, because I'm not a doctor. I'm not a transplant surgeon. I'm not a transplant anything, nor am I a renal dietitian. It's just lived experience. I am the data that they read. Right? I am the data that shows up in the flesh form, right? Where we have to be strong about that, right? Because patient advocacy is essentially saying, look, I'm telling you my story, so in hopes that it impacts you to be better than what I've learned. And as you're navigating it, just make sure you look out for these types of things.
And I feel like that's where the unification begins. You know, not so much so to be like, well, you're just a jitterbug, go stay over there. But just like, hey, look, I'm going to big brother you on this one. You know, this is 100%.
This is that's what advocacy is, right? Yeah. And most of the time it isn't paid. Yeah. Right? You do this out of the kindness of your heart. You do this out of kindness to raise awareness. You build community, common in unity. Right? You build with people who are going through it. Hey man, how do you get through this? I remember I was on dialysis and I kept drinking water and I kept ending up in the emergency room. He's like, look, man, you're doing it wrong. One of the dialysis patients told me, he said, look, crush some ice so you can program your mind to think like you're drinking water, and you'll be able to feel like you're drinking water all day. See, this is very different advice than someone who's at CKD 2 or 3. Absolutely. Talking about, man, I'm at CKD 4. When that person says that, or I say that conversation on dialysis is completely different. Like, I remember sitting at the table or in my chair looking to my left. He's like, man, what's up? You all right? You're leaving early. Yeah, I had to dialyze before I have to get my foot amputated.
Oh.
You don't hear that really as much on a CKD4 patient, right?
Right.
Who might not be diabetic or anything like that, right? So it's just different. Now it's like at the post-kidney transplant stages, it's, well, what's your TACRO levels look like? How many immunosuppressant medications are you on? How are the side effects? Do you get the jitters? I would have never been able to talk about that while I was on dialysis.
Right, because that's a world unknown to you.
Right, exactly. I don't know what the jitters feel like. I'm still trying to survive off of my last dialysis treatment, right?
Thank you for sharing that. You know, and it helps me to reframe that as being a hurtful moment to a place where, well, he was just saying like, you're not ready for this talk just yet. You know, so thank you so much for sharing that.
Just be mindful of where they're coming from, at what stage of kidney disease people are on. And for anybody who is listening to this, just know that we come from a place of compassion, knowing that you might end up where we are, especially 4 or 5, right? That we're only talking about it's not that you don't know anything, you just don't know what it's like to get blood pulled out of you or what it's like to stop urinating. So if you do and you are listening to this, just know that when you start losing your color, when you have to take these things called phosphorus binders that look like horse pills, it's not that we're saying you still have a ways to go. Is that when it comes, when it rains, it pours. And you're better off enjoying your raincoat, because when this thing comes, you got to be prepared for every type of weather, whether it's storm, tsunami, rain, snow, the whole nine, that I think a lot of patients know very well. To just look outside and saying, "Oh, it's definitely going to snow today." I got my snow gear.
So you've done TED Talks, TEDx. Like, I don't know what the requirements and the steps for that one is, but big ups to you, bro. Like you hit that. In your TED Talks, you use the analogy of an EKG to describe the frustrations and burdens. Can you elaborate on that metaphor of the EKG?
Oh, very, very simple. You're going to go through problems here. EKG goes up and down, small little. For those who don't know what an EKG is, it's the thing that they put the 12 leads. You look at a screen, it goes beep, and it goes up and down, beep, up and down, right? Those are the highs and lows of kidney failure. That's the best way I can describe it, right? You'll go super high, then go super low, and those little ones that look like M's are your small victories and wins, right? They're your small victory and wins where you're like, wow, I won. My EGFR raised my creatinine went down. My EGFR went up. Those are your small wins. But at the end of the day, you're still in a war zone, and it's the small battles you have to be thankful for. Those small wins mean more to you than anything else. Okay, you got kidney disease. You've already accepted that situation, right? But now the battle requires you to now train, right? I mean, I'm using the training metaphor always because I was a former athlete. I was a trainer. I understand that methodology and how positive thinking can change a whole perspective. Yeah. Now, when we talk about the peaks and the valleys, understand that EKG method was a perfect example, because once it flatlines, that's where things get different, right? I realize that I have a born date and an end date. What I do in the middle, that line right there is the only line that should be flatlined, because that would justify everything that I've done in my life. But until there's still a heartbeat and an EKG that still beats, you're going to go through the highs and the lows of kidney failure. Don't ever. And when you get in there and you're not confident, you're insecure, you're vulnerable, you're in pain, just know that for every storm, there's a sun that always follows.
Absolutely. Society often focuses on the medical aspects of an illness, but you advocate for the emotional journey. What does raw and unfiltered mean to you in the context of that discussion of just, advocating for emotional journeys?
Befriend every emotion you go through.
Okay.
I learned that fear. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise.
I feel like you got a whole catalog, just the acronym breakdowns. Keep it going. What else? Like you say, befriend those emotions, even though they scare us sometimes.
Oh, 100%. I think a lot of my friends knew what I was going through. They knew it, and all I did was show up. And they're appreciative that someone showed up, even though they're sick and they know something's going on. Their compassion starts to show. Your energy level, you need to save for yourself at the moment in time of battle, especially while you're on dialysis. I don't shy away. While I was on dialysis, people knew when I came forward. Damn, Mark's not feeling it, but he's here. He took that little step to just show up, right? So don't ever put yourself in a situation like you're a Debbie Downer. You're fighting for your life that 99% of the people that are around you will never know what that feels like. But you showed up for yourself, for the people you love, and the people around you. That should be enough. Don't go so hard on yourself. Your body's already going hard for you anyway.
Man, hold on. Hey, Chronic Brew peeps. I'm gonna slow down a little bit because I find myself tearing up a little bit. I needed to hear that because I think I put a lot of stress on myself with that as a husband and as a father. Like sometimes I wonder, am I being the husband that my wife needs sometimes? sometimes. Like I have those, and as much as she encourages me, as much as she's like, "Stop that," I'm with it. We with it. We in this. And just like I can't help but feel like I'm faltering this whole thing. And then I look at my kid. You've seen Brian, and sometimes he wants to do all the backflips off the roof, and I'm just like, when my energy don't respond, like, how do I even, you know what I mean? Like, how do I tell him, like,
easy, forgive yourself.
Yeah.
You understand? Forgive yourself, because if you can't forgive yourself, you can't forgive the world. You see, I don't know what you believe in, but God puts people in your life for a reason or a season. And I know my community very well. I know my intermediate team, and I know they got my back whether I'm standing or falling. And I know that 100%. I know that the team that I put in my circle will love me unconditionally, whether I have a chronic illness or not. I just had to learn that while I was going through my deepest battle, kidney disease, right? Forgiving yourself will be the best thing you can do, because you show up for them no matter what. It'd be a different ball game if your heart stopped, because then you'll see them, they'll have to see you at another light. They're grateful you're here. And you got to always remember that when you think about the people and you think that you're going to put a burden on them. Believe me when I say this, man, people are happy to see you. People are happy that you're just here. You don't have to show that you're this high energy guy when you're fighting for your life. Just be you, man. Be the person God said you are. And here's something about talent, and it's so interesting. Your talent is what's easy for you and hard for somebody else. That's God's talent to you.
I needed that. Yesterday, I had a friend who, we always send memes back and forth or reels, funny reels. We always pitch that to each other. And he sent me one that was based on like a medical skit or whatever. And I was just like, yeah, that's me every day, taking pills all the time. And he was just like, bro, listen. Every day that you send me a reel back is a great day. And I'm just like, I was in the garage. I was crying. My wife came and checked on me. She's like, you all right? I was just tucked in a corner, just reeling in that moment, because that was brotherhood. You know what I'm saying?
You'll find that. You just have to be vulnerable enough to open up, because people want to help. They just don't know how.
They don't know how. We could talk about this even further, but let's keep it rolling.
Cool.
Having navigated a kidney transplant to being in front of hundreds in a TED Talk, what part of your journey remains untold that you feel is most important to share with listeners of the show?
Interestingly enough, that's a good question. People see the transplant, the speaks, the wins. They don't see what happens after. The day-to-day, the 15 medications a day, 105 a week, 420 a month, 5,040 pills a year just to stay alive. There's pressure to always be strong once you've made it through. But mentally, you're still rebuilding. You see a lot of the things that I do good, and I think a lot of people see a lot of the things that I do good, but there's still a lot of things that I have to work on myself. I'm strongest when I'm around people who can make things happen, right? It's so interesting. I found a new word for myself called social introvert. Because I'm around so many people, I like to be around myself sometimes more, right? I'm starting, it's so interesting, man. And this is the first time it's ever going to be shared. I suck at receiving acknowledgement.
I'll be the second one to raise my hand on that one.
Right? Regardless of what I've done. And, oh, Mark, you're too humble. No, man. I don't want to be praised because I'm sick. I want to be praised because I've made an impact to change. And I think that's where it goes off the tangent of where, Mark, congratulations. And I want to thank them and everyone who's ever supported my movement and what I've done. But in all actuality, the hard reality and truth is I'm leaving a dialysis center who someone is fighting for their life, saying, Mark, can you help me put my story out there? Mark, I just got diagnosed. I don't know how to navigate this. So all of the accomplishments are amazing, and I'm very, very thankful for that. But I suck at receiving that for being that person, because the people behind me are suffering dearly. Survival is one chapter. Learning how to live it again, that's a whole different story.
there is a lot to unpack in that, and people don't see it. You know, you stand in front of the crowd, they think like you're getting all the likes, you're getting all the emails, the inboxes and all of that stuff, but they don't see the after surgeries. They don't see, you know, when you're out of spoons. They don't see that. The moments where you just want to veg out just because you can't, you know.
Right.
They see your best self, but they just don't know. They don't know.
Yeah. And that's the best advice I can give is show up for yourself. Because I know what I'm good at. I know where, and it wasn't until I started, like, you know, I've been in this game for 15 years, started getting awards in the last 3 or 4. And I'm realizing, man, I clamp up into a shell. And they say, well, appreciate the moment of you receiving it. And I do, but I still think about my younger self. Help me out, man. Well, what do I do to get out of here? So as long as I can live and I can wake up the following morning, those are the awards, man. That's why they call it a present, right? They call it a present because you don't know what's in it until you open it.
Right. Now I see why you do TED Talks. I see why. All right.
Hey, this is Jessie, and you're listening to the Chronic Brew podcast.
You know, your background includes a perspective on public vulnerability for sure. I mean, we've discussed that a lot. You know, how do you balance privacy with the need to advocate for a system change?
It's okay to share whatever you want to share. Whatever you want to put out there, put what you want. You don't have to go and talk about, I didn't urinate. You need a kidney.
that's a given. We know that can happen. Yeah. TMI.
Right? You share what you want the world to know about your illness and who you are. Me, I shared everything up front. So there's nothing at any angle can you say, well, what about this? No, man, you know, look up episode with this person or that person, or look at this segment. My story's out there completely. But for those who don't feel comfortable, do what makes you feel comfortable sharing your story. I just went all in because I knew I went from the healthy living space, working out, and it's about tackling those insecurities when you look at yourself in the mirror. Am I too fat? Am I too skinny? Am I too ugly? Am I too handsome? I had to tackle those insecurities with myself, to telling those stories, to saying, look, man, and then it gives an opportunity for others to tell theirs.
If you could send a brass knuckle message to policymakers or the healthcare system based on your experiences, what would it be?
Have patients as partners.
Ooh, yes.
Have patients as partners, not data, as partners.
Yes.
Because I think lived experience holds so much weight, both in the clinical and policy space, that we need more people in there daily than just when needed.
Yeah, I always say, you know, doctors need to have us sit next to them, not just sitting across from us. You know, when you sit next to us and break it down with us, we become extensions of the practice. We become extensions of the hospital. You know, and then we can go out and make the changes in the world as needed. Yo, this has been an incredible session. You've given us the grit, the strategy, and the raw truth about what it means to be a fighter in this CKD world. I know for me, I've come away with a new perspective on, you know, what I considered the division. It's not so much so it's division. It's more so like there's levels to this. You know, we're still on the same team, but it's just like, bro, some stuff you're going to see me go through is going to make you hard to smile in the future. That's a famous line from Tupac. But anywho, for those listening who want to follow your journey, see that TED Talk or those TED Talks, or connect with your advocacy work, where's the best place for them to reach you?
You can get on Instagram, Facebook. Again, guys, I don't have a big following. I'm not here to be an influencer. I'm here to be influential. And I think the difference between me constantly sharing my story is, look, man, I'm trying to fight for you guys in a way that, because you don't have a platform or you don't have a voice, just believe that somebody else is out there doing it stronger and more willing and able to be this vulnerable, so that you can live in your space and saying, this is exactly what I'm going through. I'm the kidney fighter. I was given that name because I went from boxing to fighting for my life. Now I fight for people who don't have a voice. At the kidney fighter, at Marc Coronel. I'm not hard to find. You can find me. I'm an open book. Just read the chapters.
Absolutely. He's a voice for the people. You know, to everyone listening, Marc is a testament to the fact that while CKD might change the rhythm of your EKG, it doesn't have to stop the music. You know, whether whether you're in the early stages or like Marc, you've been through the rounds of dialysis and transplant, remember that your lived experience isn't just a burden, it's an asset. Don't just fight the system, learn how to navigate it with your head up and your guards high, if you will.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us for another round of the Chronic Brew. I'm going to drop all of Marc's links, his TED Talk, and resources for CKD Advocacy in the episode descriptions below. If this conversation, and I mean seriously guys, if this conversation hit home for you, do us a favor, share it with one other person who needs to hear that they aren't fighting alone. I'm Mr. Cool Beans. I've been here with Marc Coronel. And until next time, keep brewing, keep fighting, and keep moving forward. We'll see you on the next episode. Peace out, peeps.